This is my video about the real issues with Universes Beyond. For those who don't know, Universes Beyond originally started in 2020 in Magic the Gathering with the crossover with The Walking Dead, as you can see with this card here, Negan. These cards function effectively as a crossover IP where other IPs from other games or shows or movies or anything come into Magic the Gathering in the form of playable cards that you can buy. Initially, it was started out that all the Universes Beyond products would remain as secret layers, which were just cards that you could buy as a large bulk package that were only playable in the older formats. However, over the years, it has become more and more common to see that many more normal sets will be featuring Universes Beyond's cards. If we look at Lord of the Rings, these cards are legal and monitored and were printed specifically for that purpose. A card like Basim here is specifically printed for Commander, as many more Commander products are getting filled with Universes Beyond cards and planned for Commander players. And the most decisive of all of them is the fact that the new Final Fantasy set and many of the future upcoming Universes Beyond sets will be standard legal, making them completely equivalent to a Magic the Gathering set that would have been printed in any of the other years, as these cards will be seeing play in basically any format you can think of. And this has caused a lot of decisive opinions from many people playing Magic the Gathering. There are many people who hate it a lot and decry that it is the death of Magic and ruining the game. And there's a lot of people who end up loving it a lot, seeing it as something that is excellent and should definitely be included in many sets to come. If you simply have a look at the section where I talk about Magic the Gathering in my Killing Games of video, you can see that there are many comments from both sides of the aisle, even these ones which are right next to each other, people talking about how Universes Beyond is something that people need to get over, a reason they got into the game, or something that they absolutely hate. So in this video, I'm going to be going over a lot of the reasons why it's good for the game and is helping to bring new players in and do other things to help grow the game, but also why it is a problem and is helping to damage the game, and a lot of the reasons that may be hard to tell that the game is being hurt by Universes Beyond. Let's start with the good first. So what are a lot of the good reasons that Universes Beyond should be included in Magic the Gathering? I think the most obvious starting reason you would want to have Universes Beyond is because it is great for getting in new players. If you just look at Doctor Who and Final Fantasy, you can see that there is a massive range of different fans of different kinds of games, shows, or movies that can be enveloped by using Universes Beyond. These players may have not even heard of Magic, but if they see that the crossover with cool cards, they could potentially come in and give the game a look because it is using their favorite franchise. Not only are these cards cool for new players that potentially know the IPs really well, but it also helps players that already play Magic get more enfranchised in the game and potentially come back to the game after leaving. I know plenty of players who saw Lord of the Rings or who see Fallout who are massive fans of these franchises and may have stopped playing Magic a long time ago. After you see these cards come out, it signals to players that it is a great time to get back into the game and try out these new pieces of cardboard with iconic artworks or iconic characters from their favorite franchises, shows, etc. Not only is this a great incentive for players to come back into the game, it also helps money move with Wizards of the Coast, making a lot out of Universes Beyond that they otherwise would not be able to. Secret Lair drops not only appeal to Magic players who want to collect lots of cards, they also appeal to the people who the Secret Lairs are pointed at, who are super fans of whatever the Secret Lair is about. This means that they know that they can charge a large amount for these iconic cards, and it does not impact the larger player base as a whole, as these Secret Lairs are mainly focused on the people who want to see these kind of cards. If you see an awesome card and think, I have to have that, that is one of my favorite moments that I know of, and I want that as a Magic card, as either a Magic fan or just a fan of whatever the thing is in general, you can see that it'll be the same price every time when you buy it from Wizards of the Coast, making a very consistent and easy way for Magic to make money off of its players and off of cards that they love. A large problem that Wizards has previously run into is that the duds hurt an awful lot when it comes to the finances of Magic the Gathering. If they end up releasing an awful set that effectively nobody buys, not only do they lose a lot of money printing all of these cards specifically, but they also lose out on all of the revenue that they would have made. Previously, Magic only made 4 sets in a year, and if one of those sets was a dud, they would effectively have no source of revenue until they printed the next set, putting a lot of weight on that set's shoulders to not be bad. So after all this, what is the problem with Universes Beyond? It sounds like it is a great way for Wizards to not only get more money, but also to pull in new and enfranchised players with favorite IPs that they love. So what is the issue with Universes Beyond? I think there are two key parts that really show why Universes Beyond is dragging against the player base overall. And the first one of these is definitely product overload. If we just look at the products released in Universes Beyond since 2020, we have The Walking Dead, Stranger Things, Arcane, Street Fighter, Fortnite, Warhammer, Transformers, Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, Evil Dead, Jurassic Park, Tomb Raider, The Clue board game, Fallout, Hatsune Miku, Assassin's Creed, Monty Python, Ghostbusters, Child's Play, Marvel Heroes, Final Fantasy, and SpongeBob coming out, not to count other Universes Beyond sets that will be coming out in the future. That is an absolute truckload of content. And if you're a collector planning on getting some or all of these different Universes Beyond cards, this ends up being an absolute nightmare. Not only do you have to worry about procuring these highly anticipated cards when they are released, hoping that the Wizards website actually works and sends you the product, you also have to worry about all the other Universes Beyond stuff that I didn't mention. I only mentioned the large sets. I haven't talked about all of the other side products that come along, like these March of the Machine Commander decks that come out, like all of the different sets that come out all the time that aren't just including standard sets and the Universes Beyond product, but also includes Modern Horizon sets, other straight to format sets, different forms of things for Pioneer or other formats. There is an absolute massive amount of Magic content that was already being created before Universes Beyond came in and increased it maybe 5 times fold. And I will say, I'm not a collector, so a lot of people who look at me complaining about what it is for collectors go, it's all right. If you don't want to collect everything, you can just only buy the products that you want. If you don't like the product, if you don't like the IP, you're not forced to buy it. There's nothing forcing you to get those cards. You can just not buy it if it's not for you. But this leads to a really core problem that I think a lot of people who just buy the cards to either collect or play with in Commander don't understand. And it's, how do you know if the product is for you or if you would not like it? When Magic originally started, there were only 4 sets coming out every year, and they almost all took place on the same plane, meaning that you had very few options if you didn't like the product. You really just wouldn't play Magic for that year because there was nothing you wanted out of it. But nowadays, with such a massive amount of product, you don't really have time to think and analyze every single card coming out. There's just not enough time in the day, even as a Magic content creator, for me to keep up with all of the different sets and products and cards that are coming out. So how am I, as a player, supposed to understand if I like a product or not? I can't tell because I don't have time to look into it to see if it's something good for me to play with in my decks. This also further compounds in formats like Commander, where you can play with any cards printed over the game's entire history, meaning that the more cards come out, you have absolutely no idea what kind of cards you want to add to your deck or build around or anything, because there is such a deluge of product coming out that you could never ever possibly keep up with what the products are. If that's one thing that's making Universes Beyond worse for Magic, the other one gets at the core of Magic, which hurts me a lot, which is the quality of the game itself. I don't know if it needs to be stated, but with Wizards laying off more of the staff and increasing the amount of stuff that they are releasing, it just means that the stuff that they are making otherwise will have a lower quality, as they simply have less time and less man hours to work on those products. And this, in my opinion, has led to a lot of what are generally considered disappointing settings in Magic the Gathering. We have a set where everyone just wears cowboy hats because it's the cowboy theme set. We have a set where everybody's just a detective because it's the Clue theme set. We have a set where everyone is just playing as monster hunters in a horror mansion because it's the horror theme set. We have a setting where everyone is driving race cars and has race goggles on because it's the racing set. This is what a lot of the recent Magic sets have ended up feeling like. Not only do these settings somewhat feel like Universes Beyond in themselves because they're relatively vapid and very easy to pick up if you have absolutely no idea what's going on in Magic, they don't actually build anything into the story of Magic or continue anything as well, meaning that all of these characters that you love, like Oko or the Wandering Emperor, just end up feeling like kind of nothing characters just walking around a themed area as opposed to actual characters with a story that you can follow. When Magic was first being created, a lot of cards would tell stories throughout their cards themselves, not relying on previous media to kind of build a story for the cards. If you looked at a card like Zurgo Helm Smasher, you would see that he's a large menacing 7/2 with haste, but then when you see him progress into Zurgo Bellstriker in the next set, you can understand that there have been things changing over in the story that would change how different characters are seen or appear as, or what happens in this case with the time travel. When the Wanderer was originally released in War of the Spark, she caused a huge mystery around who she was and what she meant to the story, as there was nothing involved with her until that set had come up. We now know her as the Wandering Emperor, the Emperor of Kamigawa, meaning that you gain a lot of story knowledge without actually having to look at more than just the cards. As you can see, these two characters are the same, but have progressed from one time to another. There's a lot more depth and meaning that you can get out of the characters of Magic the Gathering using only the cards, not relying on previous info or storylines to kind of convey what is going on. These cards lean on the story of Magic the Gathering, but also lean on the card designs and the card names themselves to get points across to players without having to hammer them over the head with obvious references. I think there is no better example of how this is lacking in Magic the Gathering than with the character Loot. Loot, the Key to Everything, was a card printed in Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and being called the Key to Everything, you'd think this card would see a lot of progression over the next few sets, as it is very important to the plot, right? Well, when we look at the Bloomborough version of Loot, we can see that the card has not really changed that much in any way. It's still a Beast Noble. He still costs green. He has like different effects, but in terms of the story, we don't really know what's going on with Loot at all. And then when you continue into Loot the Pathfinder from the most recent set, we can see that Loot just has racing goggles now and still basically serves no function. What is the meaningful connection I'm supposed to make to this character as it goes from set to set? Because there's so many different ideas and references and things that have to slot into the story, there are tons of characters like Loot in the stories that end up having no story whatsoever. This card, even though it's appeared in 3 different sets and should be one of the main characters, has effectively no function to the plot whatsoever, which makes it feel really vapid and useless as a device or something I should care about. Contrast this with Liliana, one of the original 5 planeswalkers that went through many harrowing journeys, becoming the Dreadhorde General during the invasion of Ravnica with Nicobolas, to becoming Professor Onyx, completely renamed in everything except for the fact that she still has the Planeswalker Liliana tag, becoming someone different after she went through a traumatic event. This character has a reason to care about them because of all the different events they've been through and how many different stories have been written about her, meaning that if you are a Magic player, you can easily become attached to a character like Liliana. These character stories are not only things that keep Magic players interested in continuing plots of Magic the Gathering, but they also help to establish the world and what is relevant going on during all of the stories and the gameplay, giving you something to latch onto for the game rather than just having to hold you in there with cheap references or ideas that you recognize from somewhere else. And all of this ultimately gives me a really mixed feeling about the future of Magic the Gathering. My hopes are that for the future of Magic, they continue to try to make more character focused and setting focused sets rather than making things more vapid and irrelevant. Neon Dynasty was an example of a set that felt like it had a lot of love and care put into it, as it not only referenced Magic the Gathering's past, but also introduced new characters that were relevant and easy to grow into main staples of the card game. As well as the upcoming set Dragon Storms of Tarkir with Sark and Dragon Ascended coming, means that not only does it feel like this set is going to be referencing the past, much like previous sets have done good jobs referencing previous planes, but also will introduce new things and new ideas to the set of Tarkir, with many new aspects coming in that weren't there previously. In this way, Magic can develop stories that have been continuing for almost 30 years now in interesting ways that make you want to stay with the IP of Magic the Gathering. Whilst I'm hopeful for that, it is also possible that future sets will simply be made quickly and for disposal with no real substance or plot or anything to drive you to play Magic the Gathering more after the initial setting. If we look at a card like Basri, Tomorrow's Champion, you can see that he's basically just a guy who has a card that is driven by cats in the racing set. Even though this character has been introduced in the plot previously, he effectively has no function in this set other than just being a card that you may recognize from previous Magic the Gathering cards. This effect may also be further compounded by the fact that 2 of the 4 sets released for Standard every year are now going to be Universes Beyond sets, meaning that they will not contribute as much as a regular Magic the Gathering set would to bringing you into the lore and the gameplay and what makes Magic the Gathering a lot of fun as a player. If these sets continue to be kind of slapstick and just generally to bring new players in, it'll be a lot harder to build a lasting audience that Magic the Gathering has cultivated over the past 30 years. It's also possible, however, by introducing more of these Universes Beyond sets into the main sets, that the lesser amount of sets will be much better and higher quality, meaning that players who jump in for a different setting will stick around, as the new set released will be really, really good and make players want to stick around. I think this could be true because by having less sets, hopefully they can put more effort into the settings that we do get, meaning that the Magic story will breathe more life into the game and make more players willing to stick around after seeing their favorite Final Fantasy character or Avatar The Last Airbender character or whatever it may be. Or they won't, and they'll just botch it all, making all the settings basically worthless, and then we'll have to continue down this rabbit hole of making new Universes Beyond sets until the end of time. Who's really to say? I want to know what you guys think down in the comments down below. If you let me know in the comments how you feel about it, I think it could be a really interesting discussion, but please keep it civil, as a lot of these opinions can end up being extremely heated. Whilst you're down in the comments, make sure to leave a like and subscribe on my channel. This video is a little bit different than what I'm trying recently, so if you want to see more content like this, a like and a subscribe would definitely go a long way. Thanks for watching.